people all over the world are sheltering in place or even in quarantine. And here at RTI, there are even new rules in place limiting the number of people in the studio.
But don't worry, even as we draw further apart, Taiwan Insider will find ways to bridge that social distance. I'm Natalie So.
And I'm Andrew Ryan. Let's begin with a look at the stories that have been on our radar this week.
There was drama on the high seas this past week. About a dozen Chinese speedboats surrounded Taiwanese Coast Guard vessels that were removing illegal fishing nets near the Kinmen Islands in Taiwanese waters. They rammed one of the boats, damaging 2 outboard motors. The Taiwanese ships drove off the attackers with stun grenades and beanbags. Taiwan is reducing penalties for people who overstayed their visas if they turn themselves in. The temporary policy will take effect on April 1st and last for 3 months. The goal is to reduce the risk that visa overstayers could contract and spread COVID-19. The government will also automatically lengthen visas for all people who arrived on or before March 21st who have not overstayed their visa. The government's Central Epidemic Command Center is recommending that all indoor events with more than 100 attendees and all outdoor events with more than 500 should be halted. Organizers who go ahead with big events are being told to take adequate precautions and have measures in place for handling potential cases of COVID-19. After closing its border to foreign visitors on March 19th, Taiwan has now closed its airports to transit passengers. The measure is part of ongoing efforts to stop the spread of COVID-19. The measure took effect Tuesday and will last until April 7th. Even though COVID-19 is thought to have a greater impact on older people, 76% of recent imported cases have been people under 40. Many of them have returned from travel or study abroad programs scuttled by COVID-19. Although young people are less at risk, there's concern that they could infect more vulnerable people.
Now for our words of the week. Are you ready to guess,
Yes.
Andrew?
What do you have? Nothing. Oh, B, boy, brisk, bread, break?
Yes. Okay, many of us are living differently these days, and I think of it as a break from the normal way of life so that we can break the spread of the virus. And we'll be talking to some people, someone in home quarantine, a writer, and talking about what quarantine is like here in Taiwan.
All right, excellent word. Are you ready for mine?
Yes.
All right.
Disinfect? Distress? Distance.
That's
Aha!
right. You know, the key word of late has been social distancing. I think we should change that to physical distancing. Because we don't
social
really...
distance sounds kind of negative, right?
Exactly. We want to stay apart physically, but we want to draw together in this tough time and decrease the distance between our hearts, if I could be corny for just a second.
Sure.
Also, a little bit later on in today's show, I'm going to be talking about how they're using cell phones to monitor people in quarantine, and they can tell the distance from your home that you have strayed.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So if you're in quarantine, you need to stay in quarantine. All right, shall we put these words up on the shelves? Let's go. Also today, where's this? This beautiful sea of white flowers is a popular attraction at this time of the year in Taiwan. People head up in the mountains not just for the view, but also to pick the flowers to bring home. So what kind of flowers are these and where in Taiwan is this? We'll have the answer for you at the end of our show.
Cities around the world are on lockdown to fight the new coronavirus, everywhere from Mumbai to New York to Paris. Now, what about Taiwan? Well, this is what experts in Taiwan think Taiwan should do.
Taiwan has fared better than most in the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak. The borders have been shut and events canceled, but otherwise, everyday life goes on as normal. But as scenes of deserted landmarks and empty streets from the rest of the world filter in, some here are wondering if Taiwan's luck will hold out. Experts say that so far, there is no need to put Taiwan into lockdown. One of these experts is Dr. Li Bingying, president of the Pediatric Infectious Diseases Society of Taiwan. Dr. Li says it is better to avoid a shutdown, given the disruption it would bring to people's lives and to the economy. He says closing down cities should be avoided, even if Taiwan eventually sees community transmission on a large scale. Instead, prevention efforts should be the focus. These efforts include steps like making sure people disinfect their hands when entering and leaving restaurants or movie theaters, and banning all indoor events that would put large numbers of people in close quarters. There is an important caveat here, though, the R0 value. This is a number that shows the average number of people who will catch a given disease from a contagious person. Dr. Li says a number below 1 means that an outbreak will be brought under control. The trouble comes when the number is higher than that. Other experts say that if the value for COVID-19 gets above 1.7, it may be time to put Taipei under lockdown.
Now, so far, preventative measures have been pretty effective here in Taiwan. Most of the cases have been imported. In fact, only about 16% have been local infections.
That's why last week the government began requiring everyone who arrives in Taiwan to go in home quarantine for 14 days. And most of the new cases have been found at the airport or in home quarantine. So in today's Taiwan Explained, I'm going to explain just what happens in home quarantine. In today's Taiwan Explained, I'm going to explain what happens in home quarantine.
All right, Natalie, we've got 60 seconds on the clock. You ready to go?
Yes, I am.
All right, go.
Okay, well, quarantine begins at the airport where you get your temperature measured and you fill out a health form. And then you travel in a private vehicle or designated quarantine taxi. If you take public transport, you could be fined up to 1 million NT dollars. You can choose to go home or rent a room at a quarantine center. And some cities are giving out care packages like this. You need to record your temperature and symptoms daily. If you have a cough, fever, headache, problems breathing, or fatigue, you should call the 1922 hotline to seek medical care. As long as you don't have symptoms, you can go to your home and live there in a separate room and try to keep about a meter's distance from people. You should also remember to practice hand hygiene. Also make sure the home is well ventilated and disinfect the kitchen, bathroom, and doorknobs daily. You'll be monitored daily and cannot leave the home. And Taiwan takes this pretty seriously. If you break quarantine, then you will be fined up to 1 million NT dollars.
Very nice, Natalie.
Oh, thanks. I made it on time.
Yeah, perfect. So now I'm curious to know, home quarantine and self-isolation, right? Is that the other one?
Yes.
I think they're quite similar,
They're
right?
very similar. Self-isolation refers to people who have been in contact with confirmed cases. And it's basically also 14 days at home. They just have different people monitoring. It's the medical authorities monitoring those in self-isolation.
Instead of like the neighborhood chief for quarantine, right?
So that's basically the same thing almost.
Okay, excellent. Now, recently I spoke with a writer, Karissa Chen, who is currently under quarantine here in Taipei. She was on one of the last flights from New York to Taipei that left before they stopped banning almost all people with foreign passports. Of course, I was curious to know what she's been doing for food.
I have a lot of instant noodles. Well, I also have, I'm fortunate to have friends who have dropped me off like groceries. I've asked for certain groceries. My very, very sweet security doorman in my building brought me like 2 dozen eggs, like a lot of eggs,
Oh, that's sweet.
and like, bread, which is really nice. So I'm okay on food right now. I've just been cooking a lot and eating a lot of instant noodles.
And how are you keeping sane being inside your apartment for 7 days now? What's it been like?
Oh my
What have
God.
you been doing?
There's a lot of TV. I'm like watching a lot of shows that I've been meaning to catch up on, like exercise videos. I think because like in America, there's so many, like everyone is sheltering in place now, it seems. So there's like a lot of people like streaming like videos live, like fitness videos and things like that. So I've been sort of doing some of that, like online courses. I like cleaning. I don't know. I downloaded a karaoke app. I sing karaoke like a lot by myself in my apartment. I'm sure my neighbors are actually sick of that more than anything, probably. Yeah, and like I live in a very small studio apartment. It's like really small. It's lofted, so it's kind of hard in terms of exercise. So I've been walking up and down my stairs a lot, which this probably seems crazy.
What do you think you've learned over the last 7 days, either about yourself or about life? What do you think you'll take away from this experience?
I think we're really seeing sort of both like the best and worst in people and in human nature and like the way that people treat each other. On the one hand, we have really terrible things, people who are really selfish and who don't feel the need to quarantine or break quarantine or are being like really racist or xenophobic against people that they deem in danger for like no reason than the way that they look, right? The anti-Asian racism in America is really frightening, and I'm afraid for a lot of my friends and family back home. But on the other hand, I feel like I've seen like a lot of kindnesses, like I've seen the way that people have been lifting each other up and like coming up with ways to like sort of get through this together. And even something like I said, like my really wonderful security guy who like just like left food at my door. It was like so sweet. I was like really touched. It's not enough for me to think like, oh, everything I'm doing is to prevent me from getting the coronavirus. Because if I just have that mindset of like selfishness and like, then what happens is like you hoard things, right? You hoard the masks, you hoard the toilet paper, you hoard the food, and you're awful to people. But if I start thinking about it more like I'm going to assume the worst, which is that like I'm asymptomatic and maybe I have it, then it's really about like, well, what can I do to make sure that I don't become a factor in making this worse? How can I do my part to make sure that my community stays safe, that the people that I love, and even the people that I don't know and I don't love, but they're just people that are other humans who have loved ones, like how do I prevent those people from getting worse? And how can, like, what is like the small part that I can do to do that?
Again, that was writer Karissa Chen, who splits her time between New York and Taipei. At the time of the interview, she was halfway through her 14-day home quarantine in Taipei.
In today's Taiwan by Number, we're going to be talking about cell phone monitoring for people who are in quarantine. All right, Natalie, we're going to start off with a big number. You ready?
Okay, sure.
All right, our big number today is how many people have been under quarantine or home isolation since the coronavirus hit Taiwan?
In Taiwan, you mean, right?
Total.
Oh, I have no idea. 80,000?
All right, let's have a look at the answer.
Are you serious? I think I must have saw that number somewhere. I must have saw it
80,000.
somewhere.
I think she's been cheating again. So 80,000 have been under quarantine or home isolation since it began. Now, currently, there are about 40,000 people who are under quarantine and about 1,400 people who are under home isolation. Again, those people who are under home isolation, those are people who have come in contact with confirmed cases. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about how cell phone monitoring works for all these people who are under quarantine or home isolation. So basically what they have is a new system which is called an electronic fence. And it's basically a phone tracking system. So you arrive at the airport, they ask you for your cell phone number if you have a Taiwan cell phone, or they give you a smartphone. So it has to be a local number. Then they ask you for the address of where you're going to be quarantined or in isolation. Then they pair the two up. And so then they can keep tabs on you based on the signal that's emitted from your SIM card. So cell phone towers will triangulate your location based on the strength of the signal.
But what if you don't take your phone with you and you leave the home?
Well, they call you every day to find out if you're at home.
Right.
So that's also part of it. That's a good question. Now, my question for you is, if you leave that, well, I should tell you first that if you leave the address, you get a warning message and the local authorities are alerted and they will call you immediately as well. Now, if your phone goes off, like it's out of power, how quickly are the authorities notified?
Oh, 5 minutes? Or maybe 1 minute.
Wow, can you imagine? The authorities are constantly alerted by little mishaps, people losing power. Let's have a look at the answer.
15 minutes, okay.
15 minutes, yeah.
Interesting.
You can imagine if it was too quick, like
That's
people
true.
have...
Because usually you run out of battery at one point.
Yeah.
That's very common.
I think it's pretty common. I mean...
So you have 15 minutes leeway to get that battery going.
Exactly, exactly. So don't let it lapse too long. Now, I want to tell you about an American university student who's under quarantine in Taiwan. He was awakened last Sunday morning by the police knocking on his door because his phone had gone off. Didn't have any batteries. So he was very surprised, of course. It turns out that not only did his phone go off, he actually got 4 phone calls because they knew as soon as there was no signal, right? And they also got a text message warning that the guy could be arrested for violating quarantine. So my question is, how long did it take for the police to show up at his house?
Since it went off?
Yes.
Half an hour?
All right, let's have a look at the answer.
Oh.
50 minutes. And you can see down there, he says, my phone, which is satellite tracked by the Taiwan government to enforce quarantine, ran out of batteries at 7:30 a.m. By 8:15, 4 different units called me. By 8:20, the police were knocking at my door.
Yeah, I think I saw that story.
Yeah.
It was a little bit longer than I remembered.
Yeah.
But still really quick.
It is very quick. I mean, of course, it also depends on how close the police are. And of course, they're very busy. They've got a lot going on.
They're on top of it, man.
But they're on top
You don't want to,
of this.
break quarantine in Taiwan.
Yes.
You'll get fined $1 million.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to say that there have been some concerns about how the government is tracking people by their phones. Now, a government spokesperson has responded to this, saying that it is legal and it is a necessary measure in a time of pandemic, and they will only do it for this period of the pandemic.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Andrew. And that is our Taiwan by number for the week.
This week on Hashtag Taiwan, I want to talk to you about what you can do if you're undergoing home quarantine and some notable people in Taiwan who have been quarantined. Now, I know what you're thinking and you don't have to worry. I am not currently under home quarantine. In fact, this isn't even my house. I'm in one of RTI's many recording studios. The reason why I'm coming to you from here is because RTI has implemented a social distancing measure. Now, you see, Natalie, Andrew, and I can't be on the same set at the same time without violating said measure, and doing so would be a one-way ticket to No-No Town. So I would just like to assure everybody here who's missing my presence on set that
I'm fine.
Jumping right in. The Health Ministry stresses the importance of quarantine measures, and they do so by employing Ministerial Good Boy and Spokesdog Cai Cai to deliver the message. But people are people and they're gonna get bored, so what can you do to stave off the boredom? Well, there actually turns out to be a lot of things that you can do. Companies are stepping in, and in fact, one company has teamed up with the new Taipei city government to offer 3,500 free subscriptions to their video and music streaming service called Friday. If you'd rather not be a couch potato, then gyms and local recreation centers are offering online versions of their classes. What about the kids? Well, thanks to Dreams Mini Baseball Club, they can run baseball drills right in the comfort of their own home. And what if you just don't feel like being active? Well, I got this meme here that says, "Friend, what are you going to do under quarantine?" And the picture just shows someone separating the sugar, the creamer, and the coffee from a bag of 3-in-1 coffee mix. But in all seriousness, quarantine measures are pivotal when it comes to containing the virus. Taiwan makes no exceptions. Not even if you're, say, #1 ranked badminton player in the world, Dai Ziying. Now, she recently just came back from a competition in England, and she's been under a 14-day quarantine ever since. Here she says that if she keeps eating without training like she has been doing under quarantine, then she's gonna get fat like a pig. But, I mean, come on! Zhou Ziyu, who is a member of the Korean girl group Twice, actually came back to Taiwan, underwent a 14-day quarantine, and then swiftly went back to Korea to rejoin her girl group. She shared her life under quarantine by way of her pet dog and food, and that got me thinking, well, if you're under quarantine, why not try some cooking? In fact, Vice just uploaded a new video to their cooking YouTube channel that teaches you how to make Taiwanese beef noodle. Now, I know that if there's one day that I have to undergo quarantine, the first thing on my list is to make a nice rack of oven-baked barbecue baby back ribs. Now, that's all I got for you this time around. Until next week, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and Andrew and Natalie, stay away from each other.
Now it's time for our lightning round news quiz. I'm going to quiz Andrew on the week's news.
This is the moment where I wish Leslie was here with me today. Not the only moment, of course.
Yes, and you can play along at home if you like. So Andrew has 60 seconds to guess as many questions as you can, all right?
All right.
Are you ready?
Ing-wen. No. No, that wasn't. Sorry. We haven't
Minister of
started.
Health, no. Okay, ready, go. When did Taiwan warn the WHO of human-to-human transmission of the new coronavirus and began doing onboard inspections on flights from Wuhan?
December 31st.
Good. Besides online, what new venue can people buy masks at?
At convenience store. Family. Chenlian Fudi Zhongxin. RT Mart.
No, it's airport duty-free shops.
Okay.
Okay, how many face masks will Taiwan be making daily next week?
13 million.
Right. How did the Taiwanese Coast Guard react when Chinese crew on speedboats threw rocks and bottles and rammed into them?
They threw beanbags and like air horns.
You're right. Stun grenades.
Oh, stun grenades.
And also, how does Taiwan rank in a survey of happiest nations?
17th in the world.
25th in the world, first in East and Southeast Asia.
Wow.
Yes, a chemical compound found in what popular Taiwan drink may help fight COVID-19?
Tea?
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, who did Health Minister Chen Shih-chung criticize for having a, quote, party?
A party? Chen Shih-chung criticized young kids? Students?
There was a college student who in Tainan who was in home quarantine. He couldn't go out to his friends, so he invited some friends over.
Shocking.
And then Chen Shih-chung said, this person is senseless and is not afraid of death, and we're going to punish people like that. Actually, it's probably only a couple friends, but still.
How much did they punish him? $1 million?
No, they didn't punish him. But they said in the future, behavior like
Yeah.
that will be punished.
All right.
So he was not happy with that case.
So I think I got most of those.
I think you got 5 or 6. I
I
wasn't
got
keeping
most of
track.
them. I only got one wrong.
Okay, then that's
like that.
6. Very good. Very good, Andrew. That's our news quiz for the week.
And finally today, where in Taiwan? Now at the top of the show, we showed you a photo and asked if you knew where it was. Let's take one more look at that photo. Of course, we said these beautiful white flowers are a popular attraction at this time of the year in Taiwan. So the question is,
What kind of flowers are these, and where in Taiwan is this? Let's have a look at the answer.
This large patch of calla lilies is located in Yangmingshan National Park in the northern stretches of Taipei City. It's one of 9 national parks in Taiwan, best known for its mountainous forests and steaming hot springs. The Calla Lily Festival kicks off on Friday, March 27th. About 80 to 90% of all of Taiwan's white calla lilies are grown here at a place called Zhuzihu. For a small fee, you can pluck some flowers to take home. You'll want to use both hands and pull straight up from the ground. The Calla Lily Festival lasts through June 21st.
we hope you enjoyed this inside look at Taiwan this week. Be sure to connect with us on social media.
Yes, leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. For Taiwan Insider, I'm Natalie So.
And I'm Andrew Ryan. Keep washing those hands, and we'll see you next week.